Greetings. Thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Matthew Mays, and we're going to talk about cracking your PDF. PDFs are often thought of as this dark area of the internet where if I have a PDF, then absolutely nothing can happen to it and it's sacred. But today I'm going to show you some behind the scenes tricks to prove that that's not necessarily true. So before we begin, I want to make sure that you have access to this set of slides because there's all kinds of helpful tools that are embedded throughout. So I want to make sure that you have access to them as well. So if you would, in a new tab, check out the link that I have here on this page. It's https://bit.ly/maze PDF, MAYS PDF, all lowercase, all one word, and that's going to get you access to the slides that you see here on your screen. So I'm going to be navigating around a little bit, so please don't worry if I shrink my screen down so that you're seeing kind of like the slides in edit mode. Totally okay. I'm going to be clicking on things and going to different tabs, so I apologize if some of the screens look a little bit smaller than what you're seeing now, but I promise it's all so that way you can see things in their best light. First off, I wanted to give you a little background about myself. Like I said, my name is Matthew Mays. I'm a G Suite for Education certified trainer, and currently I'm a consultant at the Stark County Educational Service Center, which is just an awesome place to be. So thank you again for joining me here today. My contact information is here as well. If after you watch this session, if you need anything, if you have further questions, please feel free to reach out to me at this email. For our session today, I have a couple different learning outcomes. We're going to learn how to design meaningful opportunities for our student learning. We are going to analyze some of the information from multiple sources to determine our best practices, and we're also going to compare and contrast some online tools for lesson activities and development. So lots of fun things on the way, and I can't wait to get into it with you. So here's kind of a guide for our session. Our introduction is done. It's out of the way. The first thing that we're going to talk about is TeacherMade. It's a really great product. Can't wait to share some of that with you. We're also going to get into Cami. After Cami, we'll talk a little bit about Google Slides and then wrap up with PairDeck. So again, we're going to use PDF in a whole bunch of different ways using these different products. But you might be thinking to yourself, well, I know PDFs are a thing, but what actually is a PDF? A PDF file is a portable document format file. And what that does is, like I said before, it basically saves your item intact the way that you meant for it to appear. So we all know that sometimes when we open something on our mobile device or maybe a tablet, or maybe a smaller screen than what we're accustomed to, it may appear kind of jumbled and it doesn't look exactly like you had hoped for it to look. Whereas if you save something as a PDF, then it is going to appear in the exact way that you had hoped for it to appear. So it kind of protects that document formatting, and it helps make sure that it looks identical on every kind of platform. So there are a bunch of different ways that you could create a PDF. But I think one of the most important reasons why I wanted to talk about this is that teachers often have a whole slew of items, from the past. And I don't want you to think of these PDFs as unworkable, or that oh, now that I have this, students can only work with them in a certain way. That's not the case. There are a whole bunch of different things that we can do to kind of bring new life into those lessons. So by working with your PDFs, we can bring them forth for all of your students now and in the future. So there's a bunch of different ways that you could create a PDF. Like I said, maybe you happen upon one that you had used previously. You can also do download as. So I'm going to pull up just this item here. This is a Google Doc, and you can see it's terms for digital learning. So this is a couple different pages. How can I make this into a PDF? Well, if you go to File, and if you choose Download, then you'll see that you get a bunch of different file types. PDF document is one of them. So when you select it, it's going to export that out and save it as a PDF, and then you can move it to different areas. Okay, you could also choose to access this through your print settings. So if you go to your print settings, instead of selecting a printer, then you could choose save as a PDF there as well. One of the things that I really appreciate is that a lot of our school buildings have copy machines that obviously are going to make us in-person copies, right? We can make a whole bunch of different versions of the thing for all of our students, but also they have digital functions. So if you if you like put a worksheet, or maybe you have a workbook, you can put that onto the tray and then have those emailed to you digitally. So that's a really simple and easy way to bring something that, maybe you only have one workbook and your school district isn't going to purchase more workbooks for the students within your class. That's a great way to bring all of those items online. And then lastly there, you can source them from online. So we all know of our places where we like to find things online. Oftentimes they protect those as PDFs, so that way they're appearing the same form, for everyone who comes to come to look at them. And so finding those, on our online sources doesn't mean that we have to play by their rules necessarily. We can always break them and kind of make them our own. Okay, so a bunch of different ways that we can create or find a PDF. Lots of different ways that we can work with them. To start, I do want to tell you that there are ways in which you can absolutely crack your PDF. So yes, we're going to talk about a couple tools today to make them workable, but let's say you just wanted to break them all together. Where can you find places to just totally crack your PDF? Well, I have two different options for you. The first of which is called Online OCR. What Online OCR does is it looks for your PDF. You tell it what language that PDF is written in, and then you tell it what you would like for that PDF to become. So here you can see, is this going to be a Microsoft Word item? Is this going to be an Excel item? Or maybe we just want this as plain text. Remember, if you're a Google district, all you have to do is move your Microsoft Word item into your Google Drive and choose Open as a Google Doc to then transfer that Microsoft Word item into a Google Doc. So know that, yes, this says Microsoft, but we can transition that into a Google Doc pretty easily. Once you have that, you hit convert, and ta-da, voila, you have a workable version of your PDF. Now, keep in mind, this may not come through as perfect as what you have created. So, we're working with computers, we're working with our digital items. It doesn't necessarily know the specific details of what it's looking at. I will say that with Online OCR, it does a great job of finding words. So this could even be something like maybe you hand wrote a message on top of a document. It's going to pick that out too. If it's unsure of are these actual words or am I looking at a picture, it's going to save them as a picture file. So when you get that other version, there's a chance that some of the formatting might be a little out of whack. Some of the pictures, or like I said, if there's handwriting on it, might be more of a digital file or a digital element. So just be mindful that it might not be a perfect transition, but again, it's going to take all the words off of that PDF and make them editable for you, which I think is a big win. If Online OCR isn't your thing, then you might want to try Small PDF. So Small PDF is a great option to convert all of your items. You can convert your PDFs into multiple formats. If you have other items and you're looking to try and transition them into a PDF, you can do that here as well. But there are lots of great options. And the one thing that I really appreciate is that Small PDF has a great Chrome extension as well. So a whole number of ways that you can use Small PDF, very similar. You just upload the item that you have, tell it what kind of file type you want it to become, and ta-da, you have a new workable item, which is really, really cool. So again, lots of different ways that you can completely crack your PDF. The first item that we're going to talk about, the first app, is called TeacherMade. And TeacherMade is going to help you convert all of your PDF files into digital activities with your students. This is found at teachermade.com, and I'm going to show you an example here in just a little bit. There are a whole bunch of features that are available within TeacherMade, and the thing that I appreciate most about it is that it is constantly updating with new features. So for TeacherMade, this is, for lack of a better word, like pandemic created. So a few teachers got together and said, we need something better. We need, a program or a product that's going to help us to use our workbook pages, our PDFs with our students in a much more efficient way, where they can actually interact with them, they can answer questions. So let's make the thing. And they went off and they did. So they're really, really good about listening to teacher feedback. They're really, really good about creating a nice, easy, workable product for all of its users. So very similar to what we've talked about previously, you have your PDF, you would upload it into TeacherMade, and then you can basically add different activities on top of your PDF, and then you make those worksheets available to your students through TeacherMade. So there's basically constructed student response areas on that worksheet that you get to select. You could also add images, you can add audio now, you can do video. You can create like an auto grading worksheet for your students that they could, take a whole bunch of different times if this is something more like a formative assessment. There's integration with Google Classroom. You can see score reports and a whole slew of other features as well. So some of the question types that are available to you, we get our short answers, we get our fill in the blanks. We also have checkbox or, check all that apply. We get drop downs, multiple choice, there's hotspots, there's all of these different wonderful things, including mathematical algebraic expressions, which is really, really cool. So think to yourself, like, how would I have done this in like Google Forms? Instead of creating something from scratch, you can take that PDF that you had. Again, maybe this is a scan from your copier. Maybe this is an item from your workbook that you have a digital copy of, but it's only in PDF. You can add all of these kinds of activities on top of your PDF. So one of the reasons why I wanted you to access these slides, remember that's bit.ly/mazepdf, is that I've embedded all kinds of tutorials for you on here. I'm going to skim the surface and just show you a few basics here, but know that there is a ton of help for you. TeacherMade has a great channel on YouTube where there's a whole slew of videos that are waiting for you to check out. So definitely make sure that you are accessing these slides if you haven't done so already. Okay, the first thing that you'll want to do is create your account on TeacherMade if you haven't done so already. And then again, one more reason to access these slides, I've given you a sample PDF to check out. So let's check it out. So I'm on TeacherMade here at the moment, and currently I'm on this pricing handout because I do want to let you know that yes, this is free. According to TeacherMade, this is going to be free in perpetuity, but they have made a premium or what they call a pro version. And the reason why is located down here, where they now have like audio features. And obviously that's a pretty premium feature that takes quite a bit of computing to make happen. So I think that's mostly where that is coming from. But you'll notice that it's not too expensive if this is something, if that's a feature that you would like to have available. But just like I said previously, there are a whole slew of free features that I think absolutely make this a worthwhile tool for you, no matter what that might look like. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And here's some of my samples. You can see I have an affinity for laying on the keyboard to create the names of some of the things that I'm working with. But currently, I'm kind of behind the scenes in TeacherMade. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a worksheet, and I'm going to give it a name. Okay, so I'm just going to say next, get me out of here. Title, let's call this How about just practice A, because that's always a tried and true, right? You could choose to give this to a description. So think about like what things are you trying to inform your students? What do they need to know about it? What would you write at the top of a worksheet if you were creating something from scratch? And then it says drag and drop a file or click to choose one from your computer. You could do a JPEG, you could do a PNG, you could do a GIF, or as we're learning here today, you can do a PDF. So I'm going to select here and I'm going to go to my downloads and select an item here that is all about like word meetings. So it says choose one or more pages below. I'm going to make sure that they both have that little red outline and then choose make my file. All right, now this is the PDF that I've accessed, right? So it's all about like words and their meanings. And this actually brought forth the answer key too, which is fun. So let's play pretend that I only had this one here up at the top. How then am I going to embed some activities? Well, those are all up here at the top. You could choose to use some of these little icons to add information, or you can go to Insert. And Insert is going to show you all of the available activities that you can lay on top of this PDF. You also see a bunch of very similar things of what you would see in a Google Doc of sorts. So your formats, your edits, your views, your files where you can change your background. You can add blank spaces into it. You can make this scoreable as well. And then, like I said, there's so many activities that you can do here to really plus this PDF. So let's just play pretend. It says correct in all details exact. Well, I wonder which of those 4 words mean that. Let's choose to do a multiple choice. Okay, this is going to have 4 choices, and I'm going to click and drag over this area. Okay, notice how my bubbles are expanding too. Okay, so what I can do is have one bubble over each of these 4. And as I do, okay, that's formatted pretty well. As I do that, now I basically have created a clickable bubble activity. So there's one bubble above careless, one above accurate, one above mistaken, and one above general. So you'll notice that when this is selected, I get a few different things that pop up top here. I'm going to go to edit multiple choice. I'm going to say that the correct answer here gets 1 point. I have 4 possible choices. Again, you can edit this as many times as you want. And then you would select the option that is correct. So pretend that you are then basically creating that answer key, right? So theoretically, you could then go down the whole worksheet here and then make yourself kind of that template that your students are going to use. For time's sake, I'm not going to do that. Know that you have a bunch of different options here. So you can make something matching, you can make something check boxes for questions that have multiple answers, as well as all kinds of other things on top. What I'll tell you is the way that TeacherMate is structured, I find that I have to practice these things first. It's one thing to kind of talk about them in theory, but I really think that if this is an app that you would like to begin using, that you really just kind of have to get in and start playing with the question types to see if they actually appear the way in which you think they should appear. So before you finish, you can go to scoring, set up your default scoring. You can see like I really only have one for right now. And then when you're finished, you can hit this little X right here that says close the worksheet. And that's going to take us to basically our sharing out page. So I now have this practice A, that's that worksheet that we just played with. It was created on this day at this time. And then I have a couple different actions as I look to create this as an assignment. So if I select actions, I can go back in and edit the contents. I can make a copy of this. Let's say I wanted different versions for different learners. You can make quick copies of that in a hurry. You can assign this out to students. You can preview this worksheet for what it will or how it will appear for students as well, or you could just delete it out. So I'm going to click preview this worksheet just so that you can kind of see what it'll look like for students. So pretend that I'm a student now. I'm looking at this worksheet that we just created together. It says circle the word that has the same meaning. If I was the teacher, I would probably change this to say, like, click the bubble for the word that has the same meaning. Correct in all details, that means accurate. So same deal, all your student is going to do is come in here and click accurate, and hopefully all the other correct answers, and then they will click check my answers, and then it will confirm that you have done so depending on how you set that up for your students. So when you're ready, you'll click create an assignment, and then you can choose how to send that out. So how's that going to be delivered? Is it going to be through TeacherMade? Is it going to be through Classroom? Is it going to be through Canvas? They give you some descriptions on each of those so you can figure out which is going to work best for you. Just for the sake of this sample, I'm going to choose TeacherMade. And then I get a few options for how students are going to access this work as well. So are you going to ask them to sign in using their Google account? Are you going to use like a unique name or a unique ID number that you can create here within TeacherMade also? Lots of possibilities for you. It's just up to your personal preference. If it were me, I'm probably just going to ask them to use their school Google account. That way they don't have to learn something new or something unique necessarily. And then as I choose next, then I get to say, things for grading. So how should the score be displayed? What information does the student see when they turn in their work? So again, maybe this is something that's more of a formative assessment. So I want them to see their individual scores. I want them to, see these things as they're happening. You get to set all of those possibilities. So, what option, what information does the student see when their work is returned, right? You get to pick all of these. And then when you're ready, you get to move on and send this out as an assignment. So if you hit save, then off that goes to the students, which is really, really cool. So very, very quickly, that was a short demo of what TeacherMade can do for you. And if you're on this example, I have another sample here too, so that you can kind of see what TeacherMade looks like in student mode. So I think TeacherMade is wonderful. I think it's a great option for teachers to kind of bring new life into the activities that they're doing with their students. Okay, the next item that I want to talk about in terms of cracking your PDF is Cami. And Cami allows you to transform any existing document that you have into an interactive learning experience. So you can find this at camiapp.com. And when you go to actually use it, it shows up as an embedded item within Google Drive, which I think is really helpful. And I'll show you how you can get to that as well. So what is Cami? As a standalone or integrated into your Google Drive, this basically allows you to place text as well as like shapes and some of those other things over top of your existing PDF items. So unlike TeacherMade or PairDeck, which we're going to get into here in a little bit, there's no like intuitive assessment features here embedded within Cami. So don't think of Cami as like, oh, I'm going to put a question in and then it's going to automatically grade it for me. That's not how Cami works. Cami would be great for open response. Cami would be great for allowing students to kind of work on their own items or perhaps like friends' work as they're like peer editing. But it's not going to allow you to do things like, embed a question similar to how we did there with TeacherMade a few moments ago. So what's really nice is a student can very quickly, very easily start to manipulate the PDF, and then they can submit that back to teachers, within a Google Classroom environment. So Cami allows for a ton of PDF modification. You can select text, you can highlight, you can underline. There are text boxes available. You can access a bunch of drawing tools and shapes and a whole bunch of other things, including that full Google Classroom integration. Again, there is a premium version. We see things like that voice and video commenting. We see things like a mathematical equation editor. You can do all of those kinds of things. You can also do like online signatures, but know that those are premium features. I think Cami is wonderful, even without any of those features, so it's definitely something that's worth your time. One more plug for these slides. If you haven't done so already, please access them. On this slide here, I wanted to put some more tutorials for you that you can kind of see the basics. You can get rolling. There's a really, really great channel. I think Cami does a wonderful job, and like, I don't know how else to word it, but be like trendy and fun to watch. So definitely check out their YouTube channel there. That's Kami as you're searching. So just like what we did there a moment ago, as you're on this slide, definitely set up an account with Cami. That way you get all the fun access. This is free for teachers, so make sure that you tell them that you are a teacher. There's also a Cami extension if that's something that you're interested in adding to your Google Chrome browser as well. If you need a sample PDF, I have one here for you. So we're going to use this one here as our practice. Okay, now you'll notice that this is just a PDF that lives within my Google Drive, right? This is that same one that we were looking at there a few moments ago. And instead of just looking at it, instead of sharing with students, I'm going to choose Open With, and then I'm going to choose Annotate with Cami. Okay, so that's going to pop this open into a new tab for me with all of those fun things that we had available. What I'm going to do is slide my face over here to the side just momentarily, so that way you can see all of the fun things that are located here over on our sidebar. So as you are working with this PDF, now remember, we're using these items to basically lay over top of our PDF. So we're not necessarily creating new things. We're not creating activities like what we would have done previously. However, we're just looking to lay some text, some content over top of this PDF that we have. So one of the things that I like to do, let's say that I didn't want this area up here at the top. What you can do is you can take a shape and you can draw over an area, and then you can manipulate the look and the color of that shape. So let's say that I want this to be white. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to select this area, and I'm going to click the paint bucket to fill that over. Notice that did the black color fill. If I wanted to, I could do the white color fill, and now it essentially removed that little subheading for me. So maybe I wanted to customize this, right? I can click here and expand this out to basically create myself a free space text box. So maybe I want this to say something like name, and after that I want it to say class period, right? So now when a student would come on here, they would be able to type their name in, they would be able to type their class period in. Just like in everything else that we're using, you can customize the size and the look of that font as well, including if you want to like a bulleted list or any of those other items. So for time's sake, I'm not going to do that now, but know that anytime you're working in a text box, you get those options up above it as well. Some other really fun things, there's a drawing tool, there's a whole bunch of shapes that you can pick from, there's a little eraser. You'll notice that there are these little locks that are next to some of these. That's because those are premium paid features, and those are things that we don't have access to. So like I said, know that you don't need those things in order for this to be a great product. I think Cami is wonderful. It's one of the quickest and easiest ways for you to manipulate a PDF. So don't worry about not having access to those paid features or feel like you're missing out on something. So just as another example, here's my drawing tool. Let's say I wanted to reference a few other things here in this worksheet. Notice that this already has some arrows, but let's say I wanted to call attention to this as well. I can draw this really, really awful arrow. That may be the worst arrow I've ever constructed in my whole life, but that's okay. know that that you can always come back in and you can erase those things as well. All I did was I clicked my eraser and then I went over and selected that item and got rid of it. You also have access to this undo button up here at the top. So where it says undo, if you would click that, then it would just take away your most recent action. All right, so let's pretend that this is complete, that I have done everything that I wanted to with this. I get some save options. I also get a print option. I get a download option. If this were in Classroom, you could just go back to your previous tab and hit submit, and that would send it forth. Let's pretend that I'm the teacher. If I would hit submit, then that would send it forth to, or I'm sorry, let's pretend I'm the student. If I submitted that, then it would go back to my teacher as like my turned in work for that as well. So that's really, really cool. Definitely make sure that you practice this a few times, especially with students, if it's something that you're interested in, and definitely make sure that you are setting your students up for success in that regard. So you don't want this to be like, the first time that you go to use it is, something really high stakes. We definitely don't want that. So sample, test this out in something that's pretty low risk, low key assignment, and know that all of those other items are available for your students as well, which is really, really fun. All right, as we continue on, I do want to let you know that there's a great way for you to work with your PDFs in Google Slides as well. And that's going to set us up for our last activity, or our last integration, and that's with PairDeck. So in order to use a PDF with PairDeck, we first have to discuss how we can get our PDF into Google Slides. So one other shameless plug here, there's a really wonderful template gallery for Google Slides. If you haven't checked it out before, click on this link. And then I also really, really love different things like Slides Go, like Slides Mania. There's a whole bunch of wonderful areas online that have already created up just these awesome slide templates for you to use. So very, very rarely do I ever try to start a set of Google Slides from scratch. I almost always go to one of those areas to create my templates. So how can I get my PDF into Google Slides? Well, the first thing you have to know is that that you have to transition your PDF into a different file type. So first, you have to take your PDF and save it as a JPEG or a PNG. Now, I showed you a couple different ways in which you can do so to start this session. So know that you have that. You could also just take a screenshot of your PDF, or if you know of another way to export your PDF as something different, then you could do it that way as well. So to make this happen, we need that file type to be a JPEG or a PNG. Okay, next, you're going to go to File and Page Setup, and then change the size of your slide to 8.5 by 11, or whatever similar file type that might be, to match the size of your image. I think in this instance, I chose 8.5 by 11 because that's like the standard, copy paper size. Next, what you want to do is you want to click to change your background. So you'll right click in your workspace area, click change your background, and then you will select that JPEG to be your background. And this is a really important step. So it's different than just going to insert and adding a picture to a slide. It is something that I think is important, because a lot of times when students access a set of slides and we have something on there for them to use, they often grab the wrong thing, or they manipulate something on the slide that they didn't mean to, and then the student gets frustrated, and then they don't do the thing that we're hoping for them to do. So definitely make sure that you're adding this image as the background rather than just a standard image. And then lastly, you'll just share out your slides with your students and make that available to them via Classroom or any other method that you might use. You also might want to consider editing the master slide template. That's something that's totally different that I think is purposed for a different session. But if you're interested in that, you can choose editing the master slide. That's a wonderful opportunity, especially if you're using something, if you're using this for like math related purposes, then I think that is great for that as well. All right, so once you have that in as your background, then you can look to use something like PairDeck. So PairDeck is going to supercharge your Google Slides and allow for you to have all kinds of wonderful embedded activities. If you're unfamiliar with PairDeck, definitely make sure that you go to pairdeck.com/Google Slides and it will walk you through everything. Similar to our two previous activity areas that we've talked about, PairDeck has a wonderful social media department, specifically on YouTube. So know that you can check out their information there as well. PairDeck is a Google Slides add-on that's designed to support a whole bunch of different activities for you to use. PairDeck prides itself on using peer-reviewed research to guide their product design and to make it worthwhile for any student who comes on to use their program. There is full integration with Google Classroom. You get the ability to do all kinds of interactive questions and polls and quizzes and anonymous responses and locks and timers and just all kinds of really fun things. I also very much appreciate the templates that they've put together, as well as the thing that they call like the flashcard factory. So, it allows you to create some of those online flashcards that, I know a lot of teachers are after. Just like our other two, know that there are premium features and there's pricing available if that's something that you're interested in. But again, their base product is so good that I don't think you're going to need or that you're going to feel like you're missing out just by using that. Similar to the other ones, what I mentioned there a moment ago, I have a couple different YouTube videos that are going to help you to get started and kind of learn the workflow for PairDeck. So if you are on this set of slides, definitely make sure that you check out those videos and then click this link here to go to their channel on YouTube as well. The first thing that you want to do is create your account with PairDeck, and then you're going to want to add the PairDeck add-on. So I'm going to hit escape here so that way you can kind of see what this looks like. Add-ons are located up here at the top. So when you select add-on, then you can scroll down to where it says PairDeck for Google Slides add-on. Again, this is after you've added it. And if you have never done so before, just click add-ons, go to get add-ons, and then you can do a search for PairDeck, as well as a whole bunch of other add-ons that might make your life a little bit simpler as well. So once you have it, you can choose Open PairDeck add-on, and you're going to get a little sidebar that pops up over here on the right, wherein you can start a new lesson. You can embed questions into your slides as well as a whole bunch of other really, really fun things. So they have their template library here waiting for you. There's a bunch of like pre-made lessons or pre-made content that you get access to as well. So if you wanted to, you could open up that library area and use those as well. So again, just trying to save you time, trying to make things easier, and definitely making sure that this is worthwhile and workable for your students. So definitely make sure that you check that out. Again, we could spend hours talking about PairDeck, but know that those activities on there are awesome for students, and it makes it possible with the PDF after you have converted that PDF to a JPEG or a PNG and then added it as your background for your slides. As we look to wrap up, I do want to encourage you to take all three of these items for a test drive. So definitely make sure that you're practicing before you roll them out with your students. That way you have a good understanding of how to best help your students as they are working with these for the first time. What I did want to show you before I leave you here today is a comparison of all three of the things that we have talked about. So TeacherMade, Cami, and PairDeck. Each one offers a little something different, but you are, as the teacher, are the one that gets to decide what is going to work best for your students and what's going to work best for your lesson. So perhaps maybe you only use one of these during a given lesson. Maybe you find a way to use two or maybe all three of them for a lesson, or for you to get to your outcomes, which would be awesome. You are the one that gets to decide that. And hopefully you'll listen to your student feedback as well, who I'm sure will help you to determine which of these they prefer as they're working with their PDFs. So tons of great possibilities. I would definitely encourage you to check out the help centers for each one of these areas, as well as their awesome social media teams who have put together just so many helpful resources for you as you make your way through learning their products. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you do have any questions about this or any other technology need that you may have, please feel free to reach me at matthew.mays@apps.spark.org, and I'd be happy to help you as best as I possibly can. Thank you so much.